The individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
Supernatural, metaphysical, paranormal. You know, all those things you've been wondering about? Are you ready to go deeper into the realms of the unknown? I hope you've got your walking shoes on, because life is an adventure, and this is the journey. Come on, let's go. Hello and welcome to the show, everyone. I'm Jen Cruz, your host tonight, and this is the Journey Radio Show. We're showing up as the She-Squatchers because we're usually talking about Bigfoot and other hairy beasts like that. But I've got my trusty teammate on the line with me. Hey, Jena, are you there?
Why, yes, I am. I'm so happy and excited to be here, too. Sorry about that. Another mute problem. Oh, my gosh.
Right. All right. I could see her shaking her head. Yes, yes, I'm here. I'm like, okay. All right. So we've got a really cool guest tonight. We've got Jayson Burch. He's coming to us from the Pacific Northwest. He's currently living in the area of his Bigfoot sighting in Cougar, Washington. He's a veteran Sasquatch investigator coming to share his own personal experiences with us. Jay is also on a personal journey of exploring his empathic abilities. So we're going to be discussing that and so much more tonight. So let's bring him on. Hey, Jayson, are you there?
I am.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the journey. I hope you got your walking shoes on.
I do. I absolutely do.
Awesome. Awesome.
That's awesome. Nice intro, Jen. Yeah, ditto.
Yes, we're planning our very, you're in Washington. We're planning our very first trip to Washington State here in just a few weeks to the Sasquatch Summit. I have personally never been to the state of Washington before, so I'm really excited to come out there.
That was the first event I've ever attended. Was after our encounter. I couldn't find answers from anyone. I had sent Dr. Meldrum messages. I had sent Cliff Brockman messages because I work with a kid that has known him his whole life. He's like, oh, you gotta, my dad just grew up with him and all that. And I still to this day, since 2016, I've never heard from either one of them. I have talked to them, but I've never heard from them. So we couldn't find anybody to help us. And so we went to that event. It's a good event. I met David Politis, and that's where I began a lifelong friendship with Mitchell Townsend. And he's a wonderful person. So I think you guys, I wish I could get up there and see you in person, but it's about a 3.5 hour drive from here. So, but you're going to love it. The only thing I didn't like there was it's all one room. So you're wanting to talk to people, you can't. And everyone is listening to the speakers and stuff. And all the vendors are crammed into one room, including the speakers. So that was the only thing I didn't like.
Okay. We've done events like that before. We just got to keep our voices down a little bit when people are speaking. So
especially
we've learned
me.
that.
I have this loud laugh. Sometimes I try to pull my microphone away because it's like, wah. Yeah. But yes, we try to be quiet.
We try. It happens. It happens. We like to laugh. So,
well, I did invite you, Jen, up here when you guys get here, but I understand that you guys have to move on and stuff. But this is the pinnacle of Washington State of the Sasquatch, right here at Mount St. Helens. And this is where the cabin attack happened. This is where most of those famous stories have happened. It's here. So it's I hope to get you guys out here. Maybe we can do something next year or something, because we're getting to the end of when you get it's already so cold right now that if you guys, when you get here in November, I don't know if we're going to be able to get up into that where we're supposed to be. They're down here too, actually behind where we're living, because I took people back there to show them the broken branches that are twisted. No, only a hand can do that. So
gotcha.
So that's
gotcha.
I try to help as many people and teach them what I can, especially kids. Man, kids, they're so curious about this. So someone
Yeah,
needs
they
to
really
tell
are.
them.
Well, good job. Thank you. And by the way, it is a pleasure to meet you too. And I hope that we get to meet soon, very, very soon. So you're
Yeah.
going to be,
I would love to cook for you guys. I have an
I
internet
love to
show
eat.
myself, but I'm a barbecue. What do they call that? A pit master. And so,
Connoisseur.
no, pit master. And my show is Bigfoot barbecue and camp cookbook. And I'm still struggling and working on it because I have a friend who's dying. So I'm trying to spend my time with him too,
I'm sorry.
and put out a show. So I haven't put out a show in about a month, but my shows, I'm still working on them. I find my mistakes is I didn't show you what it tastes like and take, eating, but still I love to cook. And that's what I offered Jen was I love to cook for you guys, something wonderful. If you guys ever make it down here, I'll make a day of making a great brisket or something like that. So I
That
just
sounds
want you guys to
wonderful.
know that not only will I take you up there where we've had our spot, but our encounter, but I will cook for you too. So
Wonderful.
Oh, we've got to visit you now. Food is always good.
There you go. There you go. So tell us when did you start to get interested in Bigfoot? I mean, how did that begin for you? How old were you? What happened?
I had seen that. What was it? Maybe it was a Leonard Nimoy thing, but uh, there was when I was a boy. We lived in Yamhill, Oregon, and we had 52 acres, and it was all forest and things like that. So I had a lot of surgeries on my hip as a child. So I was just learning to walk again, and I was walking out, and I was spreading my hands over the tall grass. And you look down this hill, and our well was down there. Well, there was a tall guy down there with slick black hair, and it scared me. All I saw was the head, and I immediately started walking back to the house and told my mom there's somebody down there. Now, as a man, now my stepdad got up, went and looked, and he threw a fit because there's nobody down there, blah blah, and all that. But I didn't understand that then. I thought there was a man down there. I know as an adult now, later on, as I met Renee DeHanden and people like that back in the early '90s, that what I saw was probably why would a man be down there? We lived way up on a mountain. We lived it was an old homestead, so but I didn't realize that till I was a man, and then it was later on as a coon hunter. We had come upon one, and it didn't hurt our dogs, and our dogs were real friendly with it. All we could see were the eyes, and my friend told me, he's like, "Is that a Sasquatch?" And he always called me Jay, and I allowed him to call me Jay. And I I started making excuses. I don't know what is. You start trying to defend. I think the human mind takes over to try to defend what we're seeing. And I kept telling him, "Nah, it's probably an elk." And he's telling me, "If that's an elk, it'd be kicking the dogs." And the dogs weren't barking, and they were bad dogs. They'll chase anything. And he says, "And it's too tall, and the eyes are too close together." I had a million power candlelight on it. And the thing was, it was so foggy. We were in the Yakult burn, and we had glow sticks on our dogs, hanging off our dogs, and they kept walking up to it, and they were getting up like this, like dogs do to humans, and everyone it stayed focused on us, but then it would look down at the dogs, and I don't know why I kept denying to him that was a Sasquatch. I know it was, but again, you make excuses for, I mean, when we got bluff charged, I said it was a bear. It wasn't a bear. But when you see something like that, your mind won't process it the way, even though I knew what it was, I said immediately it was a bear. It wasn't a bear. And so I figured that out, that mentally something is trying to protect us up here from things we don't understand. You start making your own excuses. That's what it seemed like to me. That's the only way I can explain it. But after that, and the female coming to show me that everything would be okay. That's what I got as a message, was it's okay. But that was before I got ahead of myself. That was before the bluff charge. But that's
Okay.
basically, yeah,
So
I'm all over the place.
when did this happen?
2016.
2016. So to start from the beginning, what happened?
All right, we live here in Cougar. At the time we didn't, but we found some great camps far up the 81, and I hope you can remote view that. Far up the 81, and my company gave us 2 extra days off for the holiday weekend in September. And so I told her, well, take me up there and I'll stay so no one can get the spot. So we set up this camp and all that. And as soon as we pulled in there, I knew they were there. I felt them. I could feel darkness over on the other side and stuff like that. And I should have paid attention to that. But we set up a camp and drove back down here to Cougar, which is 9 miles down the 81, and bought some wood, went back up there and set up camp. And then my wife left. Well, the thing was, I already knew I was in trouble before she left. But that machismo thing, I didn't want her to think I was a coward, and all that. And although I'm not, it's just that I knew I was not in the right place. And so it didn't take, she hadn't left 10 minutes and there's a foot stomp just maybe 15 to 20 feet from me, and it was directed right at me. So what I did was I kept my cool. I'm scared to death, but I made it look, I acted like nothing's going on. I pulled my revolver out and just like that, held it up and set it down, pulled my Bowie knife out, held it up and set it down. And I sat there and I thought, oh my God. In my head, I put my head in my hands like that. And I was like, I'm in big trouble. And I thought, well, maybe it's an elk. And I went, it's not an elk. So that's what was going through my mind. So I began to relax because nothing's going on. And then it stomped again. So I stood up and I walked. Our tent was probably 30 feet away. I walked over there. I was really scared. I grabbed the chair I had and stuff, and I sat down for a minute, and I made a quick video that something's over there stomping his feet and all that. So I thought, well, it seems like maybe things have calmed down, but I could feel darkness. I could feel something wasn't right. I've interrupted something. I don't know what's going on here, but I decided, I threw 3 bundles of wood, full bundles of wood on the fire. They're not afraid of fire. I didn't know that then, but I go back and thought, well, I'll sit down. Well, then there was steps coming toward me, and I just said, nope. I put my pistol in the holder and my knife. I had a beer. So I grabbed the beer, I grabbed the lantern, and it's still light out. And I grabbed my chair and I walked over and I stayed. And it's raining on and off. And I've got people, my landlord's coming in. So I'm going to move this so that my wife will just answer the door. But sorry about this. And here I am running into people. So sorry, guys. I'm really sorry about this. But so I ended up panicked. There was nothing. I felt like there was no place I could go, and I felt like if I ran, I would be in big trouble. So I stood my ground, and I ended up staying up. I stayed outside that tent till dark. I could feel the energy. And so I got inside the tent, turned the lantern on, and I only had 1/2 a cylinder. So I had no place to go. It was a Thursday, so there was nobody up there. I didn't have a ride, and I'm in the forest, and I'm stuck. I have no place to go. So I started saying Wiccan prayers and stuff like that because I don't know what was going on. I don't know why they were so upset, but they started this humming thing. It sounded like that Australian thing where this type, and it never stopped. And So I laid in the tent. I didn't put any covers on me. I was soaking wet from sweat and sitting in the rain and panicking. And I held my gun in my hand, and I held my phone, and time went on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And as a diabetic, you got to pee, you got to pee. And so about 2:30 in the morning, I opened the tent slightly. I was laying on my side. I just thought, oh man. And this orb, I've never seen an orb before or since, but what caught my eye was, it was like when a child like dips the thing and they go like that, and so it's moving. It was like this, and I'm looking at this, and I could see through it, but there was orangish red all around it, and but I wasn't afraid of it. But it upset me so bad that I couldn't, I couldn't pee, and I was just, so I yelled out some pretty good F words, and I can't handle two of these things at one time, and all that stuff. I mean, I was really upset because I was afraid. I was afraid that I was going to die. I felt like I was going to die that night, but that was almost calming when that orb went down. But it was heading directly to where all this stuff is happening on the other side of me. So I closed the tent up, and I just laid there, and I laid there. Finally, at 5:45 in the morning, he let out a scream, and I'm not going to do it because we live right here, and the forest is right behind us. And it went on quite a while, but I felt relieved after he was done. I've talked to a lot of people about this, and they tell me that they think that I was some kind of a show of respect to me or something because I stayed all night. I didn't want to stay. I just didn't have no place to go, and I was way up in the mountains. So, but finally, I waited till like 7:30, and I had to pee so bad. I'm telling you that I just said, well, heck with it. So I got up, and I come out of that tent, and the tension was so black and so thick. You could feel it. It's like being in the same room with someone you just cannot stand, but you got no choice. And I looked down, and I saw that beer sitting there, and it had been raining off and on all night, all this. And I picked that up, and it was all covered in rain and stuff. And I took like a huge sip of that. Didn't matter. I went over and I started a fire, and I was so gross from the sweating all night and being freezing and all that I burnt my clothes that I was in that tent with, because they were just disgusting. And I took a bath. I was like, I don't care. I just straight up, I looked over there and I said, I don't care. And I'm naked as a jaybird up there, and I started bathing myself. I heated some water in a tea kettle and bathed myself, and then I made coffee. And by about 10 in the morning, it calmed down. That tension went away and stuff. And these birds we call camp robbers came out of nowhere, and they were surrounding me, and they'll sit on you and everything. And so I started feeding them, and I was saying, look, see, I'm a good guy. Look, can you tell I'm a good guy? I'm feeding these birds, and birds always come to me. My kids say they're in their 30s and stuff. They say the crows don't come till Dad gets here. The crows have always been there, and hummingbirds. So hummingbirds are always. It doesn't matter how high I go in the mountains or how cold it is, one will show up. So
is this from when you were younger too? I mean, did you?
The birds have always been there. So when I look in the bowl, that's all I've ever seen is crows and ravens. And if I look in the bowl, it's all I see. So I used to take it as something dark when I was younger, but I don't anymore. Because, the Bible even, he sent out a crow and the crow didn't come back. So he sent out a white dove. I don't like that story much. But when my wife got there finally at like 4:00 that afternoon, I hadn't slept, by the way. I hadn't slept. I had gone to work at 5:30 in the morning the previous day. And when that all started right about 7 o'clock that night, I hadn't slept since 5:30 the previous morning. So then she gets there, and I noticed that right outside the tent is a beautiful footprint. It's about 14 inches, but it wasn't from that night. It was from days earlier. It had to have been. But I didn't know that there was a creek there. And see, this is where the time is gone, and some memory loss, because when she got there, the first thing I did was I had never been so happy to see someone in my life as when she got there. So I told her what happened, and we walked over to the creek, which was right there in front of where the fire is and everything. And I was like, I didn't know there was a creek here. And she goes, yes, you do. We walked over here and you said that Mason would love this to play in. And I was like, I don't remember that at all. And then there was a tree that was knocked down about this big around, like 4 or 5 inches. And it was laying across there. And I said, well, was that tree there? And she goes, no, it wasn't there. Well, I could hear them breaking that tree during the night too. I was thinking, why are they fraying? Something's being frayed. They took that tree right from the very base of the ground and pushed it over, and then they twisted the top down, brought another smaller tree across, and it was an A. It was an A. I don't know what it means, but it was an A. Arla Colette told me that it meant it was an A is the first letter, which means it's a beginning. I just don't know. I don't put all my money in that bank, but I felt like I had crossed. Me and her went across there, and I've always been taught that you don't cross. If they put something across the trail, don't cross it. But we did. I couldn't help it. And there was a track over there. God, it was probably 24 inches. It was a right foot right off the trail. Most of it was on the trail, but the other half wasn't. And then there was tracks everywhere you looked. I'd never been confronted with so much evidence ever in my life as it was that day. And they were everywhere. They were everywhere. And so I looked over to the left, and I told my wife, I was like, I wonder if someone's camping over here. And I looked, and I thought a man bent down and looked at us twice. It wasn't. It was their juvenile. But I told her someone's camped right over there. It was underneath a big tree with a lot of brush around it. So we walked back across the creek. But the thing was, I thought there was a camp there. We'd never been up there before. And it turns out that wasn't a camp at all. But when my son got there, he was upset with me because our rule in our family is nobody hunts alone and nobody camps alone. And my wife told me that she said, I told him when I got home that we got a great spot and all that, and that Dad's up there camping. And he said, she told me, he said, are you going to go up and get him? Because we don't, we just don't. I raised my kids knowing about Sasquatch, and they've had their own encounters. So you have to forgive me, my voice. I'm nervous. So I don't like, sometimes it hurts me to tell the story. So.
Well, you know what? You are doing a fabulous job. In fact, I am so interested in hearing your story. I mean, your stories, they're very exciting. One thing that I wanted to ask you, you said you lost some time. How do you know you lost time if you were out there, and do you remember when it stopped?
Because it was, because I don't remember the creek. The creek is literally right there. Apparently we walked right to it, talked about it, talked about how much, because it's a real slow moving, how great it would be for our grandson to play in. I don't remember it. I have no memory. And then from the time I saw the orb, I'd say till he had done his scream, I don't remember anything. But I don't feel like anything happened to me. I just don't have a memory of it. It's just missing time. And I know that sometimes stress can do that to you. But I, as someone who is deeply spiritual, I felt like, because I had had said several times, the only thing that is allowed here right now, and I was like, is all creatures and entities of a good nature, and that's all. So, I kept saying that over and over, but I still was scared. I mean, you can You can do whatever you want. You know, you fear, but I would not let them know I was afraid, and I refused to run. That fight or flight instinct hits you almost immediately, and I knew with no training, don't run, don't run. Uh, but I have I was so I was it took me a while. I hadn't even talked to Wes yet. It was my wife the next day, or it was either the next day, no, because my grandson came up the next day. So it was still that day later after she got there. We're 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 talking, and a raven comes over our camp, and he circles 3 times. On the third time, he's about 20 feet to the left, and he's just all of a sudden he starts hovering. He's going, you know how ravens almost sound like they're talking, and all of a sudden we hear this, oof, oof, just like that. And I was like, I look at her and I'm like, geez, it's right there. But I couldn't see him. And I know it was a juvenile because that's how I felt. I felt that, but I could be wrong. I mean, don't put all your money in my bank. I'm just telling you that's how I felt, that was a juvenile. So then a little bit later, I really had to pee a lot that weekend. I don't know why, nervousness or whatever. But so I'm standing by this tree and I'm looking across the creek. And as soon as I start, here comes this female walking directly down the path. And I thought it was a woman. I honestly thought it was a layered woman, probably about 6 feet tall, it seemed to me. Layered. Again, the mind takes over. So I'm telling my wife, and I'm so embarrassed because I'm wearing a bright red hoodie. And she comes walking down, and I just thought, I told her, I said, there's a woman walking down here. She's a big layered woman. And my wife's like, well, what does she look like? I said, she's wearing a crazy coat. I could see shiny purple, shiny pink, things like that. And I was like, that is so crazy. And then when my wife finally gets up to look, she just takes an abrupt left into the, just like that. She was covered in lichen. And lichen, from when it gets wet, it reflects from the sunshine, those colors. But I didn't know that. It wasn't until we were filming some stuff that we saw those colors. But it was, you have to understand, again, I didn't have enough sleep. And what I've been told by some people is that she was trying to let me know it's okay, because I was really screwed up with when that male made that call and what they were doing to me all night. But then later on, just before dark, right down there is, they go whoop whoop, just like that. And it was directed to us. You could feel that it was directed to us. I knew when she was walking down there, she was looking at me, and I was so embarrassed because it was just this little treehouse peeing, and I'm wearing this bright hoodie. It was obvious what I was doing. So I was just like, oh man. So we went home after my son came up, and he looked at all these tracks, and he was so upset with me. But we tease him because he's our little Sasquatch, because he's 6'5", you know, and all that. So, but he looks like nothing compared to that. And so we stayed till Sunday, and the birds came for my grandson, and he had fun with them. They were landing all around him, and every time he turned around, it was great. But so we decided we'd go back the following month, almost to the day. And we're just going to have dinner up there. We drove up to the campsite, and then we noticed that it was raked. The whole thing was raked. Somebody went up there, and all we saw was a Forest Service employee coming down. That's all that was up there. And the whole camp was raked. And the only reason why you do that is get rid of tracks, in my opinion, anyway. And so her and I, we took some chicken up, and and we love. Gosh, we've been together almost 40 years. So we took our lawn chairs and all that and built a fire, and we walked back there and everything, and we began to smell, and that's the first time in my life I ever smelled one. It smelled like garbage, like kitchen garbage type of thing. But something wasn't right. Something wasn't right, you know. So I told her, let's go back to the camp. So we get back to the camp, and then I'm feeling ridiculous, and I decided I would do that call that they did to me uh, the month previous. Well, we got a bluff charge out of that, so I don't know. I must have really made them mad. So I just, but my wife forbids it now. No one, if we go with anybody, they cannot make any kind of calls or anything like that. Because she stayed up that weekend enjoying them. That male, I say to this day, likes her. Uh, he was peekabooing her and everything else. And, you know, and you could hear him talking back there. You could hear them talking. It sounded like we have deaf guys where I work. And so, you know, when they're doing their sign language, but you could hear that back there. And she was upset with, the female was upset. They call her the screamer. I've actually met a couple other people that know this pod. Mitchell Townsend's one of them.
Oh, okay, we need to go to our commercial break real quick. So can you hold that thought and we'll be right back
I
in
will.
2 minutes, everybody. Stay tuned. All right, so we're at commercial break. Doing good? Yay. We just gotta keep an ear out for Sarge to tell us when it's time to come back on. So
And you are doing a great job.
yeah.
Well, this is, you know, I mean, I got the feeling from you, Jen, that you were real. You know, I mean, I told you I was drawn to you because now some people misunderstand this. I was drawn to
Well,
you
I
as
get
an empath. So that's same way I was with Samara. And Samara, she's like, I love her. You haven't lived till you spent a couple hours talking with her, man. I tell you.
Well, it sounds like you know a lot of awesome people.
I have met some wonderful people because of this, but I've met some horrible people too.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's some nasty out there.
I have been nasty myself. I'm working on that spiritually and all that other stuff. Carrie Campbell helps me out a lot. Sibylla Irwin helps me out a lot. They're the healers I go to because of my buddy who's just right over here. You know, as an empath, I can't heal him. I can only make him feel better. So.
Yeah. But, you know, sometimes that just helps. Sometimes just a little bit of peace helps. You know what I mean?
I've had to shut down a couple of times. I'm just learning now how to shut down because I try to help too many people at once. So.
And there's so much more to doing it than, yeah, Jen has taught me a lot about that.
I go into crying fits and there's nothing. My wife gets upset with me. Quit trying to help them.
Yep. We're coming back on the air soon, so.
Jen? And roll.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is the Journey Radio Show, and when we're not live on the air, you can find us at thejourneyradioshow.com, or hey, check out our website at SheSquatchers.com, and there you'll find at the top of the page you can click a link to our Facebook page. Won't you please like and follow us there? That's where we're posting our most up-to-date information right there on Facebook. And sometimes we upload our shows, these shows are the video up to our YouTube channel. So you can find that at SheSquatchers Official on YouTube. And tonight we've got our guest tonight is Jayson Burch, and he's coming to us from Cougar, Washington, telling us about his various Bigfoot encounters. And it's very exciting for us to hear about this since we're heading to Washington later in November. So our very first trip to Washington, I just can't wait. Unfortunately, we're not going to be in the same area as Jayson. We're going to be about 3.5 hours away, I guess. But still,
you're going to be in a beautiful, 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 beautiful place. I guarantee you that. You're going to be right on the ocean, and the deer will come up and eat out of your hand.
Wow. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Awesome. So we're excited for that. We're actually going to go a couple days early for earlier than the event starts, so we'll have a little bit of time to look around right in that area there. We're not going to have our own car, so it's just what we can get to in the shuttle and maybe some Ubers. If they have Ubers up there. Hopefully they do.
They do.
So you were telling us a little bit about your Bigfoot encounter, and can you pick back up where you left off?
Well, I had been that was I like to drink beer. I'm a bourbon guy now, but for years everybody knows how much I love beer. And when we go camping, I always have that. And during that first one before we got Bluff charged, my wife was talking about it too, about everything that was going on that weekend. And my daughter-in-law was like, yeah, how many beers was that? And my wife said, you know, that cooler he takes up that's always full of beer, it came home full of beer. I did not want someone to think that this drunk guy, because if I could be rescued, that's all I prayed for, was rescue that night. But anyway, yeah, I when I'm doing that, I'm not going to be accused of a drunk, had a Sasquatch encounter. But that after I made those calls, I started getting louder and louder and louder. And my wife was sitting by the fire, and she had a blanket wrapped around her in her chair, and her hands were underneath it. And I had turned my ear this way and everything, and we were talking, all of a sudden hear a crash. And just as I turned around to say, did you hear that? Before I got that out, it was a full bore charge. And she got up out of that chair and wrapped in that stupid blanket, and her hand was caught in her chair, and she was running, and I had run to this side of the car, and it was still coming. And then I heard her squeal, and I thought she saw it. And so in my eyes, I thought she was about to be attacked. And so I drew my pistol, and then I saw her get in the car. But I have another slight, it may have been a panic, but I don't remember a lot because someone had accused me of being a coward. And so on Sasquatch Chronicles, actually, they accused me of being a coward because when I got in the car, she was sitting there looking at me, and I was like, start the car. And she's like, I dropped the keys. Well, they were right outside the door. So she reached out, got them. But they were accusing me of what kind of a man would not get out and get the keys and all that, you know. And I was just like, I felt horrible. But they were right there. But so I asked her, what happened? You know, and she said, trust me, you were my hero. You stayed outside the car until I was completely in. See, I don't remember that. But because that's the first time in my life that I could actually prove to someone that I'd given my life for them, because I was not going to let anything happen to her. So, but yeah, being accused of that kind of stuff kind of affected me. That was the first nasty taste of Bigfoot world I got. And not by Wes, but by people on the site and stuff. But there's a lot of things I didn't share with Wes because I didn't know him. At that time, his show was being pirated, and I wasn't listening to shows. It was after the encounter that we were looking to find help. And she found Sasquatch Chronicles on YouTube. So they were pirated. So I told her one day, since nobody else would return our calls or our emails, I'm going to contact this guy and see if he, I'm not going to say me and Wes are great buddies or I hang out. We don't. I did his show. I've talked to him at Squatch Fest. And when the doc died, there's nothing worse for a man. It's hard to listen to a woman cry, but when another man cries, it breaks our hearts. And when that emotion that came out of him when the doc died, I contacted a friend in the UK who's a good artist and had him make a picture of the doc with two Sasquatch, because I said, what I want it to look like was he's finally with them. And then I gave that to Wes Germer. I took it to his house, gave it to him. He doesn't live very far from me. So, but, I mean, we're not buddies. We don't hang out, none of that stuff, but I would defend him in a second because of what he's done for us people that have something to say. So, but I didn't mean to get off track like that. I think the good people should get some props. And, but after I had done that call like that so aggressively, he let us know that this is my place, not yours. And here's the thing. There is some humor involved in this. We got in there, and then she finally got the car started, and we're looking at each other, and we just got brand new chairs. All right. So they're by the fire. And she goes, do we just leave, or do you want to get the chairs? And I'm looking over there in the tree line. I was like, maybe we should grab those chairs. So she backs up, and that's when I saw, it was like smoke. It was like it was so fluent. There was this white spot in this tree, and it just went like this. It was so big and wide and just moved so fluently. It was like ice skating smoke. It just was that, and just was gone. And I got out and I told her, don't shut it off. The whole time we had her, it wasn't a GoPro, it was some other thing, but we had that going. I said, don't shut it off. So she likes to have people come over, and then she slow-mos it, and so they can all laugh. And that's funny to me too. My wife's got a great sense of humor. But we get out, and I thought we were just going to shove everything in the back seat, but no, she opens the trunk and everything. And I'm going crazy with fear. And she she puts her chair in, and I've got a hold of the car, and I'm reaching as far as I can. Just my finger can get that chair, and I'm pulling it and pulling it. The whole thing is on tape, and it's funny because the water bottle drops. I don't care. I threw that chair in the back of that car. When we got to the end of that road to get out, her purse was wrapped in her legs. We were both having panic attacks, coughing, but we're laughing at the same time. And the laughing is not because we thought the whole thing was funny. That's how you deal with, yeah, I'm sure you know that something very frightening or scary, you end up starting to laugh and all that. And I was coughing, and we smoked pretty heavy at that time. I've been tobacco free now for 2 years. After 43 years of smoking and about 35 of chewing, the Chantex kicked it right in the butt, like in 6 weeks.
Good for you.
Oh, I love it, man. Now I can hike, I can sing again, all kinds of stuff. So,
oh, it's awesome.
But yeah, we got the hardest thing about a Sasquatch encounter is the grief involved in it, in my opinion. Who do you talk to? Who do you tell? There's nobody out there for us. I was suffering. My wife's hair was falling out. And it was hard for me because of the suffering. There was nobody there for us, or for anyone of that matter that has a terrifying encounter. Now, I know that I caused the problem in that encounter. They'd been okay with us until I did that. And how they had to mess with me all night. Arla says I interrupted something. I don't know. But I know that I caused that, and I'm willing to accept that. And that's why I tell people, don't go out and make calls. You don't know what you're saying to them. And you know, there's some great people I've been able to talk to about this and stuff. But as far as helping people, like I said, there's a lot of bad taste in my mouth with this. People in this, a lot of the famous ones, they don't care. It's all about where am I going to get paid at the next place I'm going to go speak, and it's guys like you know, Mitchell Townsend. He came to my house and gave a 5.5-hour seminar at my house for 10 of us. And that's what kind of a guy he is. He's a teacher, and he's the one that found the teeth up there on Mount St. Helens, on our side and the other side of the mountain. Found the elk and the deer with the teeth marks in them. They're our teeth, but they're 4 times bigger, and it's amazing. I hope you guys get a chance to meet him. He's incredible. That's where I met him, was at the summit. So, but yeah, after that, we don't. Other than whooping, I don't have a problem with whooping. I think that when they're I don't believe the tree knock thing. I think they're doing it with their tongues, clapping their tongues, like little kids will do that. Well, they make Paul Graves can literally trap air like this. Somehow he'll go back and forth, and then he'll click his tongue. It sounds like somebody shot a shotgun. So and he says that's what he thinks they're doing, or slapping with their hands. Now, if you've ever been in a boreal forest, you can't just find a stick that you can slap up against a tree. They all break because there's too much moisture. So you notice these guys that do that take ball bats with them and things like that. You can't pick up a stick and do that. It just doesn't work. So I mean, and what Paul says makes more sense to me. Now I will say that sometimes I get this. When I was sitting there, and after that second stomp, I saw a rock is going to come at me any second. That's why I stood up and moved. So I think they were going to throw a rock, but I don't think they throw them at you. I think they throw them toward you. I personally have yet to have one thrown at me, but I have heard things land and stuff before, but I never paid attention. And I've actually gotten hunters now that tell you, there's no such thing. I said, well, don't just look at tracks on the ground anymore when you're hunting. Start looking around you and stuff. And now I've got people that go, wow, I found this break in this tree that's perfectly, this and that. And I go, yeah, that's because they're there. But I try not to argue with people. It doesn't get you anywhere. You get people say, well, the grizzly bears are scared to death of them. All the Native Americans I've talked to say that they're capable of killing each other. So they always, when they'll give each other wide berth, now it just makes sense to me. Why would a grizzly bear run an 8-foot grizzly bear run from an 8-foot human looking thing? But another thing that we were taught in the Army is that when the crickets stop, if you're out and the crickets stop, that's because it's something that's walking upright. They teach you that your enemy is coming when the crickets stop. And so if you're out in the woods and you're listening and they're all singing and everything's great, and then they just suddenly, boom, it's all done, there's good probability that there's a Sasquatch out there. I mean, I can't say 100%, but I know that this is what we were taught as soldiers. So, and then when you're out in the woods and that happens, I've always tried to stay aware. We've had them in the Susan throw rocks in the drink. When my kids were growing up, that was what they looked forward to, is listening to them throw those rocks in the drink. And one of my nephews one day, he said, Uncle, why don't you take a flashlight over there? This was back in the 80s. And I told him, because I don't want to. They're doing just fine. They're doing just fine. So, but yeah, I've only seen the two. So
I have a question for you. So what do you think? There's so many different ideas, and with all of your experiences, what do you think Bigfoot is? What are your thoughts?
I saw family interaction up there. Now, I have to tell you, I was so upset because I had suffered PTSD from this, like you wouldn't believe, for a long time, till I met Arla Collette. Now I'm fine, but I immediately, because it was right around my birthday, I told her, I want a shotgun, because I'm going to go up there and I'm going to kill that SOB. I'm going to kill him. And, but as I began to calm down and all that, I realized what I saw was family interaction up there. They had a juvenile up there. The female had come out, and obviously she knew I was there. So, she came out, and I do believe she's letting me know it's okay. But then I crossed that line a month later by doing those calls. People shouldn't do calls if they don't know what no one is an expert in this. And so I learned, I'll never do it again. I think we came from them. I don't think, what I saw was not supernatural, but what I saw on the Bluff charge, look, if I saw an orb, then I have to struggle back and forth, because I think there's something, they have something over us. I think they're above us. I just think that there's the DNA. Listen, I've talked to Dr. Ketchum on multiple occasions, and she's always answered any question I've ever had. And she says that there's Homo sapien DNA in them, but there's no Neanderthal. And but then you have Mitchell. Mitchell finds the teeth marks and uses real dental science to prove that there's a hominid living on Mount St. Helens, and just by the teeth marks, which would in any court of law would get somebody convicted if they bit somebody. So he calls them the ancient ones. I try to prefer to say that too. I believe that, but I get in a lot of trouble because I think that apes are a byproduct of us. We're not a byproduct of them. Evolution and creationism doesn't make any sense to me, either one of them. I don't know. I'm leaning that they're a people. All the native people that I know call them a people. They've married into tribes and things like that. So I don't believe in killing them. I would never. When I go up there, I always leave a message in my mind as I'm going. This gun is not for you. This gun is not for you. So, because they know what they are. But that's where I struggled. I was this ape thing makes zero sense to me. It makes zero sense. If Gigantopithecus crossed that he would have had to have evolved so fast with, they know by its teeth, and that's all they have is teeth. And Dr. Disotell will tell you also, there's no way we can prove that they walked upright or that they were 8 or 9 feet tall, just because you have a mandible and several teeth. But we do know that they ate bamboo. Well, bamboo's not going to grow on ice, and that the ice bridge wasn't a 15-minute trek. That was like thousands of miles. So it would have had to have evolved. If you go with the Darwin stuff, it's all that is impossible. I think they were here during Pangea. I think they were the original inhabitants here. That's how I look at it. I feel that way anyway. But I could be wrong. I always tell people, don't put all your money in my bank.
Well, it's really refreshing to hear some different ideas too. And that's why the big question is, what do you think? Because there's so many people, and I love your explanation. I love hearing all of the different ones because it makes us think about these things more and more and more. So thank you.
You're welcome. I take a lot of crap for it, but
I think that there are people too. I'm part Native American. I'm part Native American from northern Minnesota, and all the natives up here talk about them as a people. That they are people. Our big brother, as a matter of fact, who lives by the people and looks out for us. So, I think that they are people too. I think they're very intelligent. They're obviously intelligent enough to avoid us.
It's not just that too, but I have found growing up, because I said I lived in that yam hill, and I just talked to a friend of mine from grade school, just reconnected with her, and she was telling me that her dad also saw one in Yam Hill when she was growing up. And then my boss, now that picture I sent you of that footprint, that was my boss on a turkey hunt on Mount Adams in April. And he immediately came to me the next day at work, and he hates to do that, but that print shows you the way that foot is, those toes are, that's a younger one, and they climb. That's the first thing Mitchell Townsend told me was, look in the trees. Now, I've never seen one in a tree, but that footprint is unbelievable. And he was telling me that the thing was, the bushes were moving off there, and trees and stuff. And so they decided that they would keep going on this turkey hunt. And he said after they were way up here and there for over an hour, they came back and it was still over in these bushes. And I told him, I said it had to be a juvenile. And he said that him and Aaron had talked about what would you do if it comes out and all that, because he said, I wouldn't shoot it. And one thing I can tell you is that they're never alone. So that's what I've experienced anyway. I'm not the big expert or anything like that. I just I talk to spirit a lot too about, I ask about them and stuff, and I don't always get clear anything. I used to talk to these ones called they or them. That's the only way I ever knew to contact or talk to them. And I could get a lot of information. I found a dead person for a friend of mine, his uncle. But they also were never completely 100% truthful with me either. And so a few times embarrassed me. So I just told him one day, I don't want to talk to you anymore. I'm not talking to you anymore. And I refused. Sometimes they try to come. I go, I'm not talking to you because of that. You embarrassed me. But I was able to find Rodney, and I just saw the whole thing. So there's sometimes I see things that bothers me, but I asked to be shut down at one point, and then we have a little boy that became missing here, Kyron Horman, and I wish I hadn't. He became missing after I asked to be shut down, so it bothers me that if I would have just not been so selfish. I'm supposed to help people, so that's part of the struggle, though. I do see things sometimes, but it's hard. There's nobody really to talk to about it, you know. So that's some of the stuff. But finding Rodney was great vindication for me. And my wife always, you know, we were looking for a missing person last year, and she made me eat a lot of food and take food with us when we went up to look for this person, because when I start getting the signals, it drains me like fast. Doesn't matter how much I eat. So when we were looking for that guy, this meter was all I could see was this meter. I said, we're in the right place. But when we went up into the mountain, I said, he's not up here. The meter's gone all the way back here. So we head back down. I said, he's somewhere. He's not at this camp anymore, but he's down here. But all I could see was the river. But the river's not, it's not deep enough, you would think. Wes, I think, went up there looking for him too. And they found him. He was drowned. It's just, he was a missionary. It was just, I don't understand. I just don't understand. I felt that he was in the water, but I couldn't say that he was dead. Whereas I knew Rodney was dead. I knew it. I knew where he was and everything. And that's where they found him. So, but doing that kind of stuff at that time drained me so bad. Sibylla and Carrie Campbell helped me to cleanse myself. But at first, when I first started cleansing myself with salt and stuff, I became even darker. I was real negative because of my childhood. I'm not going to get into that, but there was a lot of hatred in me for so long, and so much darkness, that negativity, that I would wake up at night negative. I would just be negative about everything. So I was working on this, and boy, the salts and the candles and stuff were making me even more negative. And so finally it just started to reverse, and I'm not negative at all now. And it's a great thing. I did horrible things to animals growing up so I wouldn't hurt human beings. It's part of my childhood thing. So I quit hunting and everything. I just quit. I said, if I'm going to ever go to hell, it's because of what I did to animals. Well, when my buddy got his elk last year, he's dying of cancer. They asked if I'd go help him. And when I got out in the forest and I saw that elk, how magnificent it was, and I was helping him, this voice said, "We forgive you." It was just like that. "We forgive you." And so I felt it. I called Sibylla and told her I've been forgiven for what I've done to animals, and it's okay to hunt. So I've been hunting this year, but I haven't got anything, but I don't care if I do or not. It's just feeling that forgiveness. So.
Okay. Well, we're coming to the end of the show. So is there a place that people could reach out to you if they wanted to connect with you?
Facebook.
Okay. So check him out on Facebook, everybody, if you would like to connect with him and follow him there. And we can talk more about your other things if you need to. Anytime you need to talk about your extrasensory information, we'll talk about that between you and me. Okay?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on the show, everybody, and thanks for tuning in. And we'll see you next week here on the Journey Radio Show. Good night, everyone.